So let's have a brief look at configuring IPv6 ACLs. Now remember that IPv6 ACLs are always extended named ACLs. The syntax for configuring the named ACLs are actually quite similar for IPv4 and IPv6. So while I'm typing, I'll just mention that this example is more geared towards just the syntax of configuring a named ACL. We've already configured the basic functioning of what an extended ACL does for IPv4. The logic behind it is the same for IPv6. The only difference is really that it uses IPv6 addresses instead of IPv4 addresses. And you'll also see the way that the addresses apply to an interface is slightly different. Okay, so if we wanted to configure a named ACL for IPv4, we would start with IP access list. We would specify its extended or standard, and then we'd give it a name, such as my ACL. Now, if we're doing it for IPv6, we always start with IPv6, and then we say access list. There's no option for extended or standard because it's always extended. So we just simply give it a name. And then we start with our permit, deny, or remark statements, same as with any other ACL. So we can say, and I'm just going to make a few things up now. So permit, and we want to permit host 192.168. Let's go with, obviously, with IPv6 addresses. So let's permit host AAA2 access to the server over here, which is BBBB3, if I recall. So let's just say permit TCP host, and it was AAA2 to host BBBB3, and we'll say equals, and let's say port 80. Okay, that's it. Other than that, we can say permit, say for instance TCP, and we can say let's try this. So that permits basically anything from the A network to access the C network. And obviously at the end, remember, there are some extra statements. If you go through the curriculum and the content, you'll see there are extra statements for letting through the neighbor solicitation messages, etc. So also implicit statements. And then right at the end, there's still that implicit deny any. So it would actually end with a deny any, even though we can't see it. Okay, so let's do a show run. There we can see there's our access control list. So our last step would just be to apply it. Now just bear in mind that this is still an extended ACL. So in other words, if we want to filter traffic from this network, we put the extended ACL the closest to the source. So it would still be inbound on this interface here. So it would be int gig 00, and then IPv6, and we want to use the traffic filter. So just as a reminder, for IPv4, it's IP, and then you'll see, there we go, access group. So for IPv4, it would have been IP access group, the name of the ACL, my ACL, and inbound. But for IPv6, it's IPv6, traffic filter, and then the name, which is my ACL, and it's still inbound. And that is it. That is all there is to it to configure an IPv6 ACL. And it should also have shown you basically, that's all there is to it, to configuring an extended ACL. Just remember that, not an extended ACL, a named ACL. Just remember that the logic for a named ACL is still the same as for a numbered one. It's just that for IPv6, you don't have the option of using numbered ACLs.